Okay, today we're going to unbox this Veritas Bevel Up #1 bench plane. I recently acquired this. It's been sitting around on somebody's shop shelf. Looks like it's been opened, but I don't think they've really taken it out. Okay, so let's go over the parts of this Veritas #1 plane. It's not very big, as you can see, but you can see my fingers and hand fit. Let me take this glove off. My hands fit just fine. And the controls, very accessible. So what we have is we have at the front, we have the front knob, which loosens up and gives you mouth adjustment. We have this brass set screw here, which sets the distance that the mouth can close. It's a stop, so you can set it so that it doesn't impact the blade and gives you the mouth you want, so that it gives you some control over opening it up a bit or closing it down a bit. Very useful. We have the, let's call it lever cap. It's a screw cap or cap iron, a million different names. So we set the tension on it with this knurled knob here. You loosen that up and it slides off. It's cast but not machined, and the contact points are here and here. The rest of it doesn't contact. All it does is keep tension on the blade. It does not act as a chip breaker. Blade comes out, simple as that. It comes from the factory, honed or sharpened, but it's not polished. You can see you can see the striations on it from the honing process, and the back is just as it comes out of the machining. There's nothing extra fancy done to it, so if you want it polished up, you have to do that yourself. But you'll have to sharpen your blade at some point anyway. It's not going to stay sharp forever. There's the bed right here. You can see it's a large bed with a U-shape gap in the middle. And the blade just drops in, goes on to the Norris adjuster. The little set screws on the side, they just make sure that when you drop your blade in, that it is centered here. It also gives it a pivot point for the Norris mechanism. As you can see, the blade is pivoting around those set screws on the side. If those weren't there, the blade could pivot around the tension point where the lever cap is, or it could just pivot anywhere. So that might wind up giving you some more uneven extension than you would expect by skewing it. But anyway, neither here nor there. Drop it on, slide it down, tighten it up. Now, adjusting the screw is going to, the only thing it's really going to do is change the angle that this lever cap sits at, or cap iron, that the cap iron sits at. Now, when you tighten the cap iron down, you don't want to crank it down really hard. You want to crank it down so that you can still adjust the plane in the lateral movement and forward and backward without a lot of pressure. A little bit of tension on there is good because it'll keep the blade where you set it. But you don't need a ton. You just need just enough. Okay, so the blade in-out adjustment with the Norris mechanism. Okay, so right here it is barely taking any kind of a shaving. It's mostly just scraping a teeny bit of sawdust off the surface. if I advance it 1/4 of a turn, so I went from there to there, 1/4 of a turn, you can see it is now taking actual shavings from the high spots in the plywood top on my bench. So 1/4 of a turn is a pretty reasonable adjustment. So that is an overview of the controls and the parts that come off. Let's look at the construction. Okay, the knob, the front knob and the rear tote are solid wood. The rear tote can be removed with an Allen key, and the front knob can be taken off just by unscrewing it. Excuse me. The sides are smoothed. There's a little bit of curve in there. It is enough side on this. They've left enough parallel or 90 degree on the side for it to sit and be used as a shooting plane. The edges of the blade are relieved 7 millimeters. Yeah, 7 millimeters from the edge of the plane. So you're going to have, if you have a shooting board, you're going to want probably 7 mils at least of thickness on your shooting base to make sure that you're shooting the entire edge of the board. The base of the plane is finished. Oh, let me retract the blade. Okay, yeah, finished, and you can see there is no light gap anywhere down the entire length. Completely flat bottom. The sides are absolutely 90 degrees to the base, and the same all down the entire length. No daylight. So the machining on this is absolutely brilliantly precise. So this is going to, if you use this as a shooting plane, it's going to give you very, very accurate shooting. Okay, when you're using it as a shooting plane, your thumb is going to rest along the top, and then your fingers are going to curl along the edge, the curved edge of this cap. And that's how you're going to use it, sitting like that. So that when you go along, putting this in its proper place. Alright, so when you go along, you can see you have very comfortable movement. And these two fingers I put on top of the front knob. So that gives you excellent control over shooting. And that makes this plane usable as a shooting plane, and especially useful if you're shooting smaller stuff. You've got just that little bit more precision control with a smaller plane than you would with a larger plane. In summary, Veritas #1 plane, beautifully made, precision machined, comes with a very sharp blade right out of the box. The adjustments are easy and comfortable. The size of the knurled knobs are more than adequate. The size of the tote is just enough for my hands. I'm a medium in terms of hand size, glove size. And the front tote is definitely big enough to accommodate a reasonable grip for most planing scenarios. I will go over a demo of the plane in use and the use case for this plane in another video, simply because there's a lot of controversy about this plane as to whether it's useful or a toy. I think that it's very useful. So I am going to make a separate video that'll be a bit longer than a normal demo, demonstrating its use in various scenarios and explaining why I think this plane is useful for that purpose. Thanks for watching.